Record. Hey, good afternoon. We're here with WASE and Matt Nickel, Idan Benyar. That's correct, right?
You got it.
And thanks, Robert, Jason, and Jesse for joining us. And you know, I have been interested in getting the CKA for about 2 years, and I have always been afraid by the sheer quantity of stuff that it looks like it covers. But I've had a couple years of experience working in this stuff, so you know. I wonder if you guys could share with us. Well, first, introduce yourselves and share us how you came to actually getting your certificates. Right, and Idan, you want to start off?
Sure. So my name is Idan. Actually, I'm a former colleague of Matt, Mikhail, and Jason, JBB. I worked for Rancher for a little bit. And actually, where I got my start with Kubernetes, funny thing is, I kind of like made a connection with JVB a while back when I was working for Comcast. So I was working for Comcast in a DevOps role, and we were trying to incorporate Kubernetes into our infrastructure, try to see how it could work with the tools that we're using. And somehow, some way, there wasn't a lot of documentation back then. I was able to somehow get to Jason through a meetup, a local meetup in Philadelphia. So I was working at Comcast, and that's how I kind of like arrived at Kubernetes. There's a few years of systems administration, help desk, networking experience that I had previously to that, but our life after Kubernetes it's not the same. It's like a different life. So that's how I look at it. So when I first started working with Kubernetes, I was working with it, but I didn't really quite understand it to the fullest. And I kind of like got more exposure as I got more experience with the Rancher tool sets, and also after doing a few pro-serve engagements and working with different clients on different EKS deployments and different Kubernetes setups for different clients. So, and then at a certain point, and in February this year, I decided that I want to take the CKA. So actually, I took it in February, but I decided I wanted to take it about 6 months previously to that. Obviously, I was procrastinating it a little bit, and it's like Mikhail said, it's intense. There's a lot to learn. But the good thing about the exam that I know that we're gonna get into like a Q&A session and answer questions and stuff like that. But the most important thing that helped me throughout the test was the fact that I could refer to the database. I could go to the Kubernetes website and I could refer to the documentation throughout the test. So that's kind of like an open book test in a way, but don't take it lightly. Don't think that it's just going to make the information available to you. You just have to go find it. So that's the one thing I found really helpful there. But that's a little bit in a nutshell my story. I think we'll go over to Matt, right?
Yeah, sounds good. Matt Nickel, field engineer for Rancher Labs, and clearly I'm pretty involved in the federal side as well. It's been really fun getting to actually apply some of my initial experience in the job world. So I'm pretty young in my career, actually started learning Docker in senior year of college. Did a full production level deployment of MongoDB where you could add more scale through Docker containers with no downtime in a senior level college course. So that was really fun. Then started off in a government contracting job where they were doing a modernization of a 25-year-old Java app. And they were trying to put it into OpenShift and containers. So that was crazy. I ended up being the most skilled person with containers and overall Kubernetes architecture with only that Docker experience. So grew out of that quickly, got what I would call a gateway drug in OpenShift into Kubernetes. Other people would call a bad first experience into Kubernetes. Either way, I'm not going to say that. More, it was really engaging, gave a good learning curve for me to then realize that there is this open source Kubernetes out there too. And then actually, I will not lie, use the CKAD, the Kubernetes application developer, as the first exam I took, and then the CKA to increase my knowledge of Kubernetes, to show to my government contractor that I was serious about it, and then actually used it a little bit as a ticket out, right? And then I could say, hey, look, Rancher, I have the CKA. I'm young, but I know exactly what I can do. And then got hired at Rancher last November. So after 2 years in that government contracting job, went to here, and that's my entire career so far. So it's been, again, entire change of scenery, entire change of career outlook whenever I actually got into Kubernetes, whenever I did the combination of systems engineering and application development. If you keep one foot in both, you have a real edge up, because you get to see the full life cycle from a developer writing code all the way through the operations people trying to either fight against them or work with them. So that's my experience. That's who I am. That's what perspective I try to bring in. And the CKA was a great way. CKA and CKAD, honestly, are a great way to formalize my experience with Kubernetes and the Kubernetes command line and all those concepts associated with it.
Very cool. So I guess what made you switch from CKA to, from CKAD to CKA at first, I guess?
So it's actually both. So they're very complementary exams, and we can get into this later. But I would say that the CKAD application development is just deployments and config maps, kind of the basics of running an application inside of Kubernetes. And then CKA is a superset, meaning it covers everything in the CKAD. So I would say CKAD is a good starting point. But then also installing Kubernetes, managing RBAC, managing some of the lower level components and some of the more detailed components that a developer, whenever they want to run their app, don't really care about. They're just going to see as limitations applied by those operations people.
Makes sense. Cool. So, well, the next part I'd like to get into is the question and answer session. And so, before this, I came up with about 10 questions that I thought I really wanted to know about your exam experience. And I think you both answered the first one is, or no, you didn't actually. I apologize. So yeah, we'll go through 1 to 10. I have a hard time reading my own typing.
I totally get it. Don't worry.
I got the questions.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So the first one, and we'll go, I guess, same way, Don, if you want to go first, or we can take turns since, Matt, you can go first this time. So when did you guys?
It could be an open thing. Whatever.
Yeah, this is this question is very simple. When did you guys take the test? Like how long ago?
So I did the CKAD and CKA in September of 2019, I believe. And then that was, I believe, 115 or 114 of Kubernetes. The CKAs and CKADs are both tied pretty closely to specific minor releases of Kubernetes. How about you, Aidan?
February. That's when I took it. I thought about it for a while, and I thought about it seriously for about 6 months. I think it was more than a year of procrastination, unfortunately.
Well, that's where I'm at right now. About a year of procrastination.
It's totally fine. The thing is, what helped me a lot is doing like the Kubernetes the hard way. I've done the Kubernetes the hard way, and it takes you step by step. You don't need to overthink too much. Kelsey Hightower just takes you step by step, and that really opened up everything for me, to be honest. That was a turning point.
So I think let's keep going in that. So Matt, do you have any what was your study pattern for this? What did you use as your source of truth?
So my study material was 2 Udemy courses exclusively. Right now, they're at the full price point of 110, but it's Moonshots. I can post this later. We can follow up. Moonshots. Awesome. Moonshots 2 courses that are dedicated at the CKAD and then the CKA. So he, of course, suggests to do the Kubernetes the hard way, but basically what he does is he takes you through targeted content for the course, but then also gives you code cloud scenarios, kind of like a Rancher's Hobby Farm, but basically the interactive labs. He spins up a Kubernetes cluster for you. You get to do the command line, everything to then closely replicate what they're going to be doing on the test, but mainly to reinforce what concepts they're actually going to be learning and what steps it actually takes to go from an existing Kubernetes cluster to a final cluster with the resources created that you require to accomplish the goal.
Right. And Moonshot does a good job at, like, I think he cloned the Kubernetes The Hard Way repo, and he kind of like modified it a little bit, and he takes you step by step. And it's kind of like to what you do in that course. I took that course as well, the CKA course. I bought the CKAD, and I'm procrastinating that right now. So although this should be easier.
It should, yes. So that's another thing I do want to make sure is I keep bringing up the CKAD, the application developer. It really was. I don't know how much of this is, I'm trying to not break any non-disclosure stuff, but from my experience, if you take the CKAD, you have essentially already taken, or no, other way around, CKA,
right?
Taken that, you've basically already taken the CKAD. You just have to trim down some of the more advanced content out of your studies. So that's encouraging for me, at least.
Right.
Wait, yeah. So the CKA is more advanced than the CKAD from the Kubernetes side?
A little bit more advanced just because it has more of those low-level details, right? A little bit more memorization, or a little bit more, say, system D unit management versus pure Kubernetes API interaction.
So
that's a very small.
I don't have the experience of the CKAD, so I don't know. I'm not sure if it's set up similarly. And there's one of the questions are targeted to kind of like discuss this is the CKAD similar to CKA as far as like the question structure and the points?
So if I were to summarize a CKAD, it would be the CKA was a lot of Kubernetes. Oh, and I guess we haven't even discussed the format yet. Do you want to discuss the format of both of these tests?
Yeah, sure. So let's, did I even have that as a question? I did not, but just get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the best explanation of the format is a console window with kube control.
Wait, Matt, can I interrupt you and just say that the image behind Jason's video is hilarious. His kids messing around in the background.
It's great. I love it.
Sorry.
I've tuned it out at this point. It just doesn't even affect me anymore. The dog will come up and like try to grab my hand occasionally. Good dog, yeah.
It's great. So it's great being on a call with JBV. So much energy. I love it. No, the format of the CKA and CKAD, well, actually, if we want to, and what Moonshot also gives in his labs, is just kube control after kube control after kube control command. It's about making sure you understand what end goal of the Kubernetes API resources you need and what kube control commands get you there in the shortest time and path possible. So whenever we talk about the CKA versus CKAD, I would say whenever you take the CKA, you're going to do a lot of deployments, pods, images, creation management, some config maps. And then eventually you'll get into maybe installing a systemd unit. Maybe you'll be doing some etcd-ctl. Maybe you'll be doing some role bindings. But if you just, first section was a lot of deployment stuff, config map stuff. Then the next section was the etcd systemd unit. I would say the CKAD is this part of the CKA. And then you just tack on a little bit, and then you get the CKA full. So that's why I would say the CKAD is a great starting point. You basically have this iterative process, right? Start out with just the deployments, the good container runtime portions of Kubernetes. You get familiar with that, take that confident, then move into the, well, now how do we control that? How do we install it? And that's then that second part tacked on.
So the Udemy course you guys are mentioning, if you go into Udemy with no account, like incognito window type of thing, and use a new email address, right now they're like $15 a piece.
What?
Yeah.
That's
I'm using my Rancher Federal to go buy them now, and they're 15 something a piece instead of 30. So 30 total for the two of them.
Yeah, I'm going to do that right now too.
Yeah,
well, okay, I'll wait till you guys are done. I will not be rude. I'm sorry. But so I did want to take a break for a second and go to everyone else who is studying for this exam and ask which one there's like. So I would like to do both. I think both are good to have. I've been a developer way before I was a DevOps guy, so for me it makes sense. I think, especially advising companies on like how do you build this stuff. So, Robert, how about you? What are you studying for right now? You're still.
Oh yes. Well, I'm preparing for the CKA. Recently, I became a co-organizer of the Houston Kubernetes meetup, and I've been hosting a weekly CKA study jam for the last month. And we're going through Moonshots CKA course. We'll give a 30-minute summation of the concepts covered, followed by a 20-minute discussion. On Tuesday at 6, from 6 to 7, we'll be covering logging, monitoring, and lifecycle management. My goal is to be prepared to sit for the exam in the next 6 weeks.
Will you share the link to the meetup in the
yes,
chat?
I shared it.
Oh yeah, you did. Okay,
window.
cool, excellent.
So y'all are more than welcome to join me. I'm learning the material as I go through the course. So anyone more experienced with Kubernetes, I'd very much appreciate it if you came and corrected me when I made a mistake.
The great thing about the Udemy course is that it really prepares you for the test. It makes sure you're ready.
Directly.
Like Matt said, the code cloud or cloud code portal that they have, these are scenarios you will face in the exam. Sort of similar scenarios. Pod is stuck, it's not working properly. You need to troubleshoot it, describe it, see what's going on with it. Things of that nature. A service is failing. There's an issue with one of the services. Maybe it's a TLS issue. And all of that is being, troubleshot through the CLI, like we've discussed before. And then what the course gives you is that kind of like portal to kind of like practice, get into that muscle memory of if you see a certain type of error, you know where to go look for the answer at. So
let's get back to the course here in a second, because I want to know more about, like how long it took you and that kind of, and exactly, the format of the course itself. But
sure.
Jason, you're studying as well right now? Or I was actually really surprised that you did not have your CKA yet, given that you pretty much can write the Bible on this stuff. So
honestly, it really is just a matter of the massive amount of ADHD I have and the fact that I get involved in too many things. So I just bought these courses. I'm going to start going through them because I would like to have those are two certifications that I think are valuable. And I've generally, as a software developer, poo-pooed certification of the course of my career because they're not real useful as a software developer most of the time. The things that are more on the ops side are absolutely valuable. Like back in the day, it was like the CCIE and the CCNAs were really, really valuable certifications. You were taught real world concepts. A lot of the Microsoft certifications, the Java certifications that were out for developers were crap. So this is just one of those things like, right now, as far as the things that I'm doing that are not this, it's like I'm doing this and I'm writing a mobile app and I'm writing a website and I'm streaming and doing all those things because I have massive ADHD and like all of them. So along with being a dad and dog owner and husband,
that never interrupts anything. Jesse, are you just joining us to join, or are you studying?
I never miss an opportunity to learn something new.
So Jesse's been with our group since the beginning, I think, or like a couple months in, but he's a firefighter here in the Woodlands, and in his spare time decided to learn iOS development to create apps that solve some of their problems. He also has some great open app ideas that we were considering to do, but I got lazy, so I'm sorry about that. But
I want to, going back to the format of the test,
Can we just, I want to grab Eric and Kevin that joined as well real quick. And
Oh, okay.
see if
Sorry,
they're
man.
studying. Kevin, are you studying or are you just,
I would love to. I do not have enough time, and I've actually got to drop here in a minute. I just wanted to pop in and see how well this is going. Looks great, guys.
so if you do want to take those $15 tests from Udemy, if you do want to pass it, so we'll have a recording of this just so you can have more info on the course, and I'll send links out. So thanks for joining us.
Awesome.
Eric, how about you, man? Are you studying or?
No, I don't actually get to put my hands on the technology much anymore. So I kind of like to join these and live vicariously through you guys. A lot of talking to clients these days.
I'm surprised. Are you doing side stuff though for yourself or?
No. So my latest one, the company that I work for, you used to work for, Bubble Up, we signed a deal with some production company. They want to offer virtual Santa experiences.
Nice.
And so they've dreamed up this like entire super custom workflow that probably is going to take a year to build, and it's got to be delivered yesterday. So
sounds like Bubble Up.
That sounds like Bubble Up, and that's what I'm figuring out right now. So
a little backstory. Eric was probably my greatest hire in history. During his interview, there was a SQL outage on a production workload, and this guy pulled out his laptop and was like, "How can I help?" And that was the moment, like, I knew that we were gonna hire him. But now you're e-commerce manager, right, or director of e-commerce, or what's the?
I don't even remember what the title they gave me is the most recent time, but yeah, primarily in the e-commerce space. So doing a lot of Shopify, but then more like using Shopify to solve problems that it wasn't really intended for.
Yeah, it's never fun. All right, well, thanks for joining us. Idan, sorry, format of the Udemy course.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, what was I about to say? Oh yeah, no, I was actually more referring to the test. I felt like it was kind of like an important point. There's a few questions that are more higher in value in points than the other ones. There's a few questions that are like 12 to 15 points. And then the rest of the questions, or the tasks, I should say, not questions, but tasks, are more of like 1 to 5 points, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. If you think.
Right. Yep.
Are the points displayed somewhere where you can see them, or?
Yeah, it tells you how much the question is worth. The task is worth.
And you can skip questions, right? So you can find the questions that are worth the most and see if you can do them easily.
Yeah, basically, yeah. That might be the best course of action.
Cool. All right, you guys.
It's more time consuming the more points it is.
So in your testing, in your training, how long do these courses take to do? Like if we start these tonight, can I have it finished by morning, or is this like, how many days of effort am I talking about?
What, for the test? Like the actual test?
So for the Udemy courses, at least,
the course.
they claim, well, I mean, that's the main one, right? I'm going to keep going back to that because I basically did that and then a little bit of Kubernetes the hard way and then took it because I was really ambitious and it happened to work out. I would say if you dedicated about 2 hours a day, 2 to 3 hours a day to it, you could have it done within a full week or maybe a business week. So, I mean, they say 10 total hours on the CKAD. If you're familiar with Kubernetes concepts, and same with CKA, then you're going to be able to skip some of the actual videos because you kind of know what's going on. Maybe you want to put it on 1.5 speed to just make sure you're not missing anything. But really, the value is going through the labs and treating it exactly as if it were the test, where you don't get any outside sources. You only get one other Chrome tab, Firefox tab open, and then you only have to do everything from memory. So if you happen to do a kubectl edit and you don't like VI and you want Nano instead, you have to, I always practice doing the export kube editor equals Nano enter, and then also making sure that the Nano config was there had the correct tab spacing and the correct like YAML format and auto completion stuff, whatever. Wasn't much, but just enough that it would be a Stack Overflow lookup in all of my normal days. But for the kubectl exam or the CKA CKAD, it would be oh crap, I don't know what to do, and now if I forget that, I'm not going to be comfortable doing the nano edits or doing any other modifications, and now I'm flustered and now I don't know what to do. And so treating those code cloud scenarios exactly like you had no other solutions. Hello, cat. No other outside resources was super valuable to me to make sure I got into that routine of setting up my environment without any Stack Overflow, without any other references.
I think that's a great point. Go ahead, Ida.
To add to answer your question, Mikhail, and to piggyback off that, I think it is. So it's some people also have like AWS certifications, and people ask me like, how long would it take me to study to get to take like the solutions architect cert or something like that, associate level. So to me, when I look at it, I think of it as, oh, it should probably take you a month or 2 or 3 or something like that. But it really depends on the skill level, a skill set that you possess. And not to discourage anybody that feels like there's like a big gap between them and like CKA, just to be realistic and understand that you need to close that gap and how to close it. So like, for instance, if like in an AWS test, when there's like a high level question about CI/CD, which is just how you do this action with that tool, with that specific tool. So if you don't understand like the basics of development life cycles and stuff like that, you don't know what CI/CD is, it's kind of like hard to answer, to kind of like get to a point where you know exactly what it means. You need to put some time and effort into understanding what that is. And the same thing going back to CKA, when we're talking about like the kube API server, the kube proxy or the kubelet, you really need to know what these things mean and what part they play in this orchestration platform.
And does the course cover that?
Yes. I think that is a good question, because I think the course helps close that gap pretty well. So I feel like you can come in pretty fresh, pretty green, and if you go through that whole course, you probably should be okay to pass this. Yeah, I would say for me it was super extensive, and I got everything from it.
Yep, I'd agree.
That's wonderful to hear.
Okay,
Yes.
who did you guys take the test from? How did you, like, just more of a logistical, like, did you take it from the Linux Foundation? Are they the only ones that offer the test, or?
You got it.
Yeah, then they proctor it online. So you have to make sure, like literally I had to clear everything from my desk.
The worst.
Like everything. I had to, my monitor, I just had one monitor, one laptop, and that's it on the desk, nothing else. And
Yep.
they, they ask you to take your laptop and like turn around in the room and just show that there's no like notes or your, somebody.
Underneath the keyboard, underneath the mouse, underneath the mouse pad. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the biggest thing about the format there is not exactly what you're doing during the test, but the environment of the test is that, yes, they allow you that one tab of Kubernetes documentation, Kubernetes API docs. But yes, you have to have only that single monitor on your computer. You have to have nothing else around you, no phones, no one else, in the background. You have to, I had to clear off for my CKAD, they were more lax, but for CKA, they made me clear off all of my shortcuts on my Ubuntu sidebar. So I could only have the Chrome shortcut, and that was it, nothing else. Had to fully undo all my customization ever. So it's almost like you need to have some sort of dual boot just to have a full clean, throwaway system just to take this exam if you don't want to mess up all your other customization.
So like a separate account would be useful, right? So log into a vanilla account so you don't have to burn your settings down.
Windows, Ubuntu, something. Just make sure that you have another account with Chrome installed. And that's it. And then everything else cleared off that you could ever think of. It was ridiculous.
Cool.
Yeah. Pretty thorough.
I think like these are the things that I don't think I would have been able to find in the Udemy course, like clean off your desk because you have to show the camera around. Like, I don't want to turn my camera around right now. There's no way you couldn't pay me enough money to do that right now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'll
It
make
was-
sure I have that prepared.
They're surprisingly understanding of. They're like, all right, you guys gotta just do what you have to do, and then you shut off the camera for a second, you fix up.
I'll just use it as an opportunity to clean my desk for the first time since I joined Rancher.
Yep. I did that for my other place. Yep. Oh, and if you join the test early, they will sometimes join the test environment early as well, so that then some of these things could be worked through in the first few minutes, so that then they can give you the full time to actually do the test and not any of the time being sucked up by these logistics around both ends.
And I would say just keep in mind time management, going back to like the different value that each task has, and understand that, you're fighting against for me, at least, I was racing against the clock. You know what I mean? For me, I need to read the question 3 or 4 times. But that's just me. Some people like get it faster, and English is my second language too, so takes the time. It's a little bit of time for me to comprehend, I guess. So I read it a few, and also you're under pressure, so it's like you're pressured. You're like, okay, what am I want to get this done. So you need to just calm down and just read the question, and just try to, even the big questions that are like worth 12, 13, 14 points, break them down to small tasks and have like small wins, Say,
Do you get partial points or?
Yeah, I believe you do get partial points, right?
They have an automated checking system, right? Because it's just inspecting the Kubernetes API to see if you met their end goals with whatever approach you used. So I believe partial points are based on some of those criteria, right? If the resource exists, but maybe not with some of the correct fields. But I couldn't,
Right.
I don't remember exactly, honestly.
No,
I believe that if you if you have a task that says, okay, step 1, create a pod, step 2, create a persistent volume claim, or create a persistent volume, whatever. So let's say you weren't able to create the persistent volume, but you were able to create the YAML definition file for the pod, and you created the pod. I think you would get points for that portion of it. I'm not quite sure, but
so in the test has changed over the years. So because I do the Kubernetes meetup in Philly, I've heard this type of talk more than once, and they all say essentially the same two things. Is one, always make sure you're working in the environment for the question that you're supposed to be working in.
Kube control context.
Yep, kube control context. And 2, take advantage of the alt option in kubectl to create some of your objects. So you can, create a pod definition, out the YAML to your file system, and then just edit it for the next thing, and take advantage of that.
Yeah, I was going to be saying something soon about that too. Is actually what I did to make sure I had all the logical organization throughout the test. I don't know if that's where we want to go.
Okay. Sense. I mean, I think that makes sense to go there. Let's go.
Got it. So whenever you take the test, they give you a kube config that just has all the context in it you could ever need. Personally, I created a folder per question on the little VM they gave me to then move into that folder and then change into the context whenever I did that folder, so that then I would output all my YAMLs, all my resources there. And I never did a kube control create pod enter. 100% did kube control create pod -o YAML -- dry run to then output it to my file system and inspect it, confirm that it's exactly what I wanted, and then do a kube control apply F. Because then if you can kube control apply F, that means that then you can also edit that file again and apply it again and update it, instead of doing a kube create and then, oh gosh, I have to export it and then I have to change it and I have to sift through all the junk, and then I have to do another apply, but then it gives me that like weird deprecated command of I can't apply a create, and then that doesn't make you feel good. So
yeah. Actually, you said something there briefly. that I caught. You were talking about context. You need to set context sometimes. I think that's important. An important point. You got to remember, because at the beginning I was pressured in time. I was trying to get things done quickly, and I didn't pay attention to the context. You have to switch context and run commands in certain contexts. Otherwise, you won't get the points. You might do something and it would work, but you would not get the credit for it because it wouldn't be in the right context.
It's not in the right cluster.
Most likely it will break, but.
Because they check specific clusters for specific resources, and if that doesn't exist there, you just can't get the points. Yep. So that's why I made it really a huge routine of if I went to a new question, I would make their cd kubectl set context, and then if I ever went to a different question, I would cd ... cd the then question folder, and then do a set context. It was just a little bit of overhead to make sure that I was in the right frame of mind, but then that few steps of really a firm context switch that made me go, oh, I haven't set context yet. Am I actually really in the right one? And it helped me kind of reset, kind of set my thoughts of what am I doing right now, and then move forward with whatever question I was doing.
I think that makes sense. Guys, I think we covered all but one of my questions. And then if you guys have any closing thoughts, and then Robert, Jason, Jesse, if you guys have questions, or Eric, we'll go through those. And that'll conclude it for today. So last question. So what would you not do as far as your studying if you were to do it, have to do it again? Or what would you recommend not doing? I guess, what's your biggest waste of time in studying for these things that you would recommend that we could skip?
That is a hard one. Go ahead.
Is there anything?
I would say try not to memorize a lot. Try to figure out things by going to the documentation, because if you learn how to read it properly, obviously it sounds like, oh, I want to have the answer. It's a test. I want to have the answers. I want to know exactly what I want to know and then get there. But this is a new day and age. That's not how testing is done anymore. It's not about what you can retain. It's not like memorizing phone numbers. It's impressive, but it's useless. You have docs.
That is a great way to put it.
I had this kid in my class when I was a little kid, and he would memorize license plates on cars. I'm like, that's amazing, dude. I was like, but I don't know why you're doing it. It's a good brain exercise, But yeah, refer to the docs a lot. And try to find your answers there. And generally speaking, DevOps in general, you should be a good Googler. So think about the Kubernetes docs the same way. You can find everything you need there.
One of the few things that computer science in college taught me was that computer literacy is a thing. And, currently it means Googling things. It used to mean Alta Vista or books. It was the ability to find information. So it makes sense. So by the way, I put it in a rhyme. Do not focus on memorization. Learn from the documentation.
Ooh, that was good. I like that.
Yeah.
That is probably my most useful contribution to today.
The only other thing I would add is I would, again, not for this test, not use Google at all when you're doing any of the lab scenarios.
Oh, no. You'll fail.
So searching is very key, but you have to search with the Kubernetes based search bar, or you have to Control F in the bookmark you have of the Kubernetes API docs. Instead of doing a Google search for, something pod, whatever. I know it's pod, I know it's volume, and something I just forget. You got to go into the docs page directly and then do a Control F and find pod in the sidebar, click on it, then click on the field you want, then click on the field you want, then click on the field you want, if you really want to know exactly what you need or what set of stuff you need there. So searching, but with Kubernetes docs only as the entry point instead of Google as the entry point. It's a new way of thinking, and it was frustrating for the first 10 labs I did.
Right.
No clue.
And so I'll give you an example. I had one question in the test about, I had like a NS lookup question. Forgot did you have that by any chance? I know other people had it.
I think so. Maybe I did. It's been a little bit.
But you need to run like this busybox pod with NS lookup, and it gives you, service. You create some services endpoints before that, and then you do that. So I would say like that type of stuff. that's the type of stuff I'm referring to not memorize. You should be able to go, because it's a whole process to figure that out. I would rather you focus on like trying to find it in docs, and Moonshot does that a lot. Every time you do a lab or whatever, he has like these videos where he solves it for you. Like he gives you a lab, but then he gives you like the solution too. You can view him do it, or one of his instructors. So he kind of like shows you how to find the answers in the docs when he figures out how to answer the questions in the labs. So he would go and find the answer. So it's kind of like iterating on that. I already said that, but yeah, that's about it.
All right, cool. Well,
other questions? I think we covered pretty much.
I think we covered everything. But do you guys have closing thoughts? Anything else you think would be valuable to us to know, or
I had something and I forgot it. Oh no.
Well, while you think
take
about
a second.
Yeah, while you guys think about that, so we are WASE, our meetup is doing a IoT class on the 14th. We'll be playing with these ESP32 watches and Picto blocks. Also, thanks Rancher for letting us use their Zoom and my unofficially printed posters that I will be sending to you guys. And thank you guys for doing this with us. And what I'll do is I will throw it up on YouTube and put up a link to the points. I'll send them and have you guys check them before we publish them, and put them in the meetup as notes for like, what are the, like setting up your environment, like all these points that I think are super important, and for me to memorize them as well. Well, not memorize, but to know where to find them. All right, so did you guys remember?
I remembered.
Okay,
there's a couple of weird questions that may leverage either wide output of specific things or a Jsonpath or Go template to actually output a file that contains only a specific like list of new line delimited values. So definitely don't ignore some of those Jsonpath weird advanced use cases where you're saying, oh, well, for every single pod in this deployment, pull out the pod's IP or something like that. Just getting familiar with how to do that and how to link up. I want this field from this pod. Let me go into the docs and then create the Jsonpath. Just having that generic experience will do you well for a couple of the maybe otherwise small value points, but that'll get you a couple of extra points that you don't have to worry about in some other ones where you may have forgotten something weird or something.
Yeah, practicing Jsonpath is huge. Like I've heard that from 4 or 5 different people who've taken the test. Is get to know Jsonpath, get to know Go templates, even though you don't think about them every day. That could be. It's not natural for most people to do Jsonpath.
It just so happens that. Oh, go ahead.
I had that question too, Matt. I had that. The Jsonpath question.
Hey Don, do you have any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts is you should be excited. You're getting into Kubernetes. Whoever's listening to this, this is awesome. It's interesting. You don't have to be the cool thing with Kubernetes, you don't have to be an expert to start playing around with it. You have a lot of management tools, like Rancher produces, and you have other things too, like managed services in cloud platforms. So really, you can really deploy a Kubernetes cluster with a click of a button. But if you really want to be an administrator or really advance in Kubernetes, you definitely have to look into these like Jason said in the beginning that like you mentioned like CCNA and other like networking and tech industry certs in the past. So today it's pretty much cloud certifications and Kubernetes certifications. That's like the high, the best things to go for, and most interesting, most lucrative things, certifications that you could possibly achieve. And it just opens up so much and makes your life way easier. It gets complicated a little bit when you take this type of cert and you need to dig in and into all the different components and how everything works. But once you get that experience and knowledge under your belt, it's going to start being exciting and it's going to be fun. And definitely be like Mikhail, like you said, you know, it's like a struggle, like getting to a point, oh, I want to take the test. When is a good time to take the test? It's hard to tell when's a good time. You kind of like have to do it. You're not going to know everything, but if you follow the course, you have a good, very, very good chance to get a good high score. And yeah, just be excited. That's it. It's gonna be awesome.
Robert, you look like you're ready to ask a question.
Oh, no. Well, I was going to ask, so with the questions, I'm going through Mumshad's course, and the questions and the exercises will start with first do this, then do this, then do that, and lastly, do this. On the actual test, will you be presented with a larger problem and then you have to work through the steps?
It's fairly direct. Maybe there will be some steps, but mainly they would present it as a few end goals that then maybe you would take a couple of steps to approach that goal. But usually there isn't much of really vague questions that you're not exactly sure which path. It's more of, oh, I know I have to do this, so I have to take these steps and let me make sure I have those all nailed down before I really keep going forward with all my 10 different kube control commands or VI, nano, who knows what.
Okay.
It's fairly direct.
I do have a second question. It's not directly related to the CKA. I'm going through Mumshad's course and I've gotten to the section about secrets. And in his course, he says that the secrets in Kubernetes are not well protected. And he suggested using HashiCorp Vault. As you use Kubernetes at work, what do you use to store your secrets?
I have an answer. I didn't. You want to take this first though, or
Done. You want to?
Done. Sorry.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
As I understand it,
yes.
Secrets management in Kubernetes. Kubernetes API server doesn't protect secrets well. Do you use anything specific to, like, say, encrypt them, or what's your perspective on that? I could answer it first happily if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So by default, secrets are more, in my mind, of a formality initially, right? That they're more of, let's define an API of that we can separate out from Kubernetes RBAC. Some people not being able to see secrets, but they can see config maps. If you really want encryption at rest, there's a few tools like Vault, like using AES keys, or like using even some of the managed services for key management that you can, AWS KMS, for example, that all could be leveraged.
Azure Key Vault.
Yep. Yeah. All the different cloud providers have some sort of key management system that then you can request a key, encrypt, and then do that all in the middle. But for the most part, that's going to be very, I guess, use case specific, right? Just because a secret isn't fully encrypted whenever it's at rest doesn't mean that it's unprotected. You can still have your users not see the secrets that they are maybe working with a little bit while still deploying their applications, knowing that a specific secret exists. It has a key with a value, and I know I've been told that by someone, so therefore I can create a pod that pulls in an environment variable from a secret with a specific key, and I'm all set. Maybe it's a little bit black box to me, but still it's fairly protected if you design it right.
Yeah, there's a couple of the operators out there that are pretty common in the field. One is called sealed secrets, and the idea is that you have a key value pairs where the key lives in the Kubernetes server, so you're encrypting it off server, moving it onto the server, but can only be decrypted by the server itself. The other one is called SOPs, so it's an Apache project. The government project I work on uses SOPs pretty heavily to encrypt keys, and so the base 64 encoded secret is actually sent in encrypted as well, and then it uses it integrates with things like Azure or Amazon's KMS to handle some of that. So those are the two methods I've seen most often. A great talk on the underpinnings of this is a talk that was given. It was given at Oh, which conference? It's the name of the talk is Base 64 is not encryption. It was done by Seth Vargo. He uses the word encryption to describe how Kubernetes doesn't, does secrets. So check that out.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank
And by
you.
the way, Jason is responsible for me listening to something like 15 audiobooks so far this year. So I really hate reading because I read all the time online. So I can't get myself to like read after work, but audiobooks are amazing. And every book that, is in our wheelhouse, like the DevOps Handbook, the Unicorn Project, Accelerate, all those, they're all available on audio and make for a good dog walking companion. So, all right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for everyone for joining us. Matt, Idan, thank you guys very much.
Good
I will
questions.
put the video up and a link in the meetup. And I'm going to, if you guys want to send me your addresses on Slack or LinkedIn, and I will mail you guys posters.
You got it.
Thank you all
I
so
want
much.
I want my framed. Is it going to be framed or?
Yeah, it's going to be framed. I'm as soon as I get your addresses, I'm going to take them and go to a UPS store. So
You got it. Sounds good.
Appreciate it, Mikhail.
see you guys. Have a good day.
Great. Thanks for great questions, everyone. Great talking. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Fun.
time.